Remember, our job is to keep our weight compressing in the diaphragm and radiate outward through biomotor interference. So here, your hips are down and you have to compensate. If you're moving this way, or if you're moving this way, you have to adjust. So that stays on the diaphragm. We can also use this motion to tip himself as we pin the arm, wing himself. As we press this down, the shoulder comes up. Watch. There, his elbow's keeping his shoulder down, shoulder comes up. Now, we just pin this down and start walking around. He brings himself into a wing. Now we're going to move from this position up again. Now, pressure's still on the diaphragm here. We're staying nice and compact. He's trying to pinch my leg, so I'm going to move this up and drive it into his diaphragm. We're going to change the natural position of his head here. Now later on the next installment with spinal articulations, we can work on neck cranks, chokes and strangles. Okay, some more brutal things. But it's important to realize our main job is here on the diaphragm. But once again, you're pinning this arm down, here. Pull up the shoulder and start walking around to make him wing himself. Step over the head, rotate, to control the diaphragm. Okay, if we control this and if we start to move, like when we're moving him hyperfunction, we have to shift somewhat. So as we move him, if he has the wherewithal to dump us, we're just going to keep a hold. I'm going to show one variation where you're immobilizing it, another where you're causing dysfunction, and a third where you're going to bring it into submission. So, right here, you start walking around. He dumps it. So you're going to continue with the hold. And just step over and finish. And this, let's spin this way. Just turn that way. As you move here, right from here, you're just going to elevate and twist the wrist to bring it to maximal extreme range of motion. Hug it against your chest. Now, once again, you can later, we'll be working on some manipulations of the neck to control it. If he has his leg out, hook the leg to put him out of alignment, or grab a hold of the wrist and bring this up. Add in pressure on the forearm or the tricep. Twist and rotate to crank on the elbow even more. Turn the wrist out to bring it in. Just use all of the variations that we've been working on. Continuing on with changing positions, as long as we're controlling the diaphragm and irradiate outward and then the lock, we're going to have the ability to manipulate his entire body. So, right now, we pressure down, we reach underneath, we wing the scapula, and we start to apply more and more torque to his diaphragm. We lock here, bring his leg out. We can pressure upward. Now, he can't roll me. Why? Because he doesn't have the leg to do it. He doesn't have a post. Now, if I don't have that leg, I just have a thigh. If I switch my hips to this side, he can't roll me because I'm not down there. He only has an arm and a leg to post. And if he rolls me far over, I'm going to pressure down on this elbow here into the concrete and drive upward for more of a compression hold. This is a good immobilization. A good immobilization to work on the shoulder. Just a few more variations on understanding the manipulation of the joint in a wing position. Applying pressure to the diaphragm, dropping the weight down. We're here. Now, he tries to reach underneath like he's going to shrimp out. So you're going to bring pressure back on the head, distort the head so you can apply more maximal pressure into the diaphragm and sneak your arm up underneath. Once you do, use prying against his face and hand to bring this arm back out, then back down. And once again, now I'm using the tricep to grab a hook into a mobilization. Press on this wrist. Good mobilization here. More pressure in the diaphragm. Okay, let's just do the walk around from here. Okay. Just we'll go even further. Once we're in this position, we can use our our head to drive in and to step over. This constant pressure to work over and drive up to pronate him. As we pronate him, we're going to keep on screwing and screwing and screwing until we actually bring the femoral head outside of the rotator cuff. It should be maximal dysfunction. What we're going to do now is go on to discuss the anatomical function of tipping the scapula. We had winging, now we're going to tip the scapula. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to realize, again, we're working on the mechanical axes, so we're going through this axis of rotation. Don't try and pull his arm away, and especially don't try and work up here. You want to control the humerus bone, so palm down on the wrist. Then it comes out easily, no matter how much he resists. If you control, that wasn't the wrist, I meant the humerus bone. Palm down on the elbow and make him punch himself to come outwards, all the way up to here. Now, the tipping motion, staying on the diaphragm, I'm going to move this out of the way so you can hear, but the tipping motion requires that the shoulder have space, because what's happening to the shoulder is it's moving posterior. So if it moves posterior, it's going to make contact with the ground, and it's going to be in a more stable position. So you want to adjust this fulcrum upwards towards the shoulder. If it's out here, what happens? See? The more that the fulcrum's up here, the more pressure you can apply. Next, hips are down so that you can push into the diaphragm and control the body. And lastly, remember, control the wrist so that you can manipulate outwards. Now, because of active insufficiency, the further outward this is, the more pressure is being applied to all of the joints. As you extend this outward, he's already wanting to squirrel away and move. So as you move outward, and you can pressure against here, to lift up on this arm, here. The figure 4, you're pressuring here. As you twist and press outwards, and if he wants to come back, he's only going to come back into his own arm. So this buttress really applies a great deal of torque. You don't necessarily have to lean out to extend this to really rip it. I'm not going to twist his wrist too much now. Okay, I'm just going to let this out so you can see. If you come out and twist, as well as adding this torque, right when it hits down on the diaphragm, you're going to explode the rotator cuff. Now, just a couple more points. If you take this along with fulcrum, this arm right here, and you rotate it, you can apply pressure into his nervus plexi on the arm, here. Now, he doesn't like that much. You can apply the elbow into the clavicle to limit the scapulothoracic rhythm. Remember how that will give some freedom? The tipping will give, if he tips right here, he has got a greater range of motion if he recruits the scapula. If you drive into the sternoclavicular joint, you can limit the range of motion, plus put in an extreme amount of pressure and pain. We can add residual compression to the forearm at the radius and ulna with those nervus plexi. So as we move here, if he tries to contract in, like for instance, if Mike reaches up around and grabs his own wrist, reach and grab his own wrist, the cat. As he grabs there, just bring this in. And that compression here is super painful. If you twist his wrist, you can add even more pressure. But you can use this to hyperfunction by relieving the pressure and move him over. Now, we still have this in, and we're controlling his respiration. You can make this a short package and separate the shoulder here by twisting and lifting. Yeah, there it is. Next, just an example of allowing his body to move hyperfunctionally. So if we're causing this tip here, and he puts his arm up to try and skate out underneath. We can grab this and pressure his head across. And just lift up. Now, what's happening anatomically here is we're at the extreme range of motion, 120 degrees, and we're pressuring downwards here. This is sort of like combat yoga, because as you bring this back and down, it's forcing his neck forward. You can work on just the opposite side, bringing it here. It's a superior stretch position. I'm just showing you here. I want to let his head up. You want to be in this diaphragm. Turn it down. This is a good position to bring his arms up and around to apply some type of restraining mechanism, some type of handcuff or zip cuff, or just to hold him in place and rotate him over for some type of hold until we can either scan the environment or find egress. Especially for subject control, but also this is not so efficient to be punching the back of the head. If you want to control the subject, when he's in this defensive position, keep your pressure on the diaphragm and reach underneath the humerus bone and pry against the back of the neck. This will give you a short pack. But here, now you can start to issue commands, because the knee and the diaphragm acts as a counter lever to stretch on the shoulder as you pry against the neck. You can grab the opposite wrist and use that as counter pressure for this as well. But this is going to be a frequent position, especially for subject control. Turn the wrists out to control it even further as you put in other types of braces. Step across. As long as you keep pushing down in the diaphragm, you can control this arm. Now, staying in this position, especially for subject control, but also for some type of civilian restraint, if he's moving his arms outward, like Mike is here, if you clamp down with your shin onto his tricep, this is extreme pain right here, like we said in the beginning. You can use this here as a good tip. Here's a good tip. Don't do that. Pressure down and rotate. But you can use this to control that arm as you move this arm around into a restraining position. Down here, you can switch this as long as you pack onto the shoulder for restraining holds. If you have some type of restraining mechanism, now you can apply it. If you tip over, you apply more pressure. So you can make this an immobilization hold, whereas he moves. If he moves, he'll apply more pressure to himself the more your knee comes proximal. You can also apply it with this knee and extend this out into a wing for later here. This will be a good pack. Notice his hands turn away from my groin. Keep the fingers here and then start to work the commands with the opposite. This isn't pain compliance, it's immobilization. If he doesn't comply and he starts to get actively resistant, he'll apply superior pressure into his arm. A few more stretches we're going to work on, accentuating this from the tipping mechanism. If we come underneath his head and grab his far arm, here, we can push his elbow up into a tight package. Once it's in a package, rotate the forearm and keep the pressure on his diaphragm, but allow hyperfunctionally him to rotate. Here, later, you can have a good strangle, okay? But more importantly, you can switch his head forward and grab this arm. This is a good package, controlling package, as long as this is tight in here, controlling the respiration lateral. Now you can continue to work with your subject control, or here there's a dysfunctional movement. If we rotate this here or pull this directly across as we sit down, we can snap his arm. But that's the dysfunctional relationship. If we apply this backwards as we push his head forward, his elbow is going to be free to strike. So what you want to do is you want to take his forearm to drive the other one down. Then step across as you switch hands. See how I switched hands now? Controlling position in the back of his neck. Then clobber with your knee down on the forearm. Okay, if we're working here and he overhooks our leg, we can all, just from the grappler's toolbox, fall into a shin box right here. And get it pressure on the bicep of the forearm. I'm sorry. But from here, you have the compression to keep him stable. Now, this is causing severe pain, so you don't want to make him spastic. If you do, then this is going to start to come like rapid fire. So control this down. And now you have both at the same time, but you're keeping pressure on the diaphragm the whole time so you can take away his will. Standing here and you're trying to work on him, you can just flop down into your shin box by direct pressure to his diaphragm, pull his hand forward. This is super tight. Control the opposite arm. Pressure on the diaphragm. And the next